Oh, good afternoon, folks. Thanks for coming in this afternoon. I'm going to show you all about the Drupal Workspaces module. Let me clear my voice before we get started. I'm excited to demonstrate this new Workspaces module that's in core. The first small section of this presentation, I do have some slides just talking about the module, the landscape, and some other helpful contrib modules. But the majority of the time today, I'll be doing an actual live demo showing you all what it takes to set up the Workspaces module, how to interact with it, and how I really think it's going to help impact your sites and your clients that do a lot of content-heavy Drupal sites. I plan today, well, let me just say that my audience here right now is mostly for content editors, Drupal sites, and site builders. I will touch on some developer-focused things, but that'll be at a pretty high level. So let's get started. My name is Matt West. I'm an engineer at Forum One, engineering manager at Forum One, and I've been working with Drupal for over 15 years. I have a lot of experience using Drupal in large nonprofits, as well as the state and federal government spaces. I do a lot of work. Lately, I've been doing a lot of work with HHMI and the National Resource Defense Council, who have found this module to be handy in their workflows. I've also done a lot of large Drupal projects for like the Department of Justice, Department of Interior, and USDA. So I will say, if your organization or anybody is interested in working with us, please reach out. We have a lot of experience in this sector. We'd love to turn your project into fruition. And also, for any developers in the room, we're always looking for contractors. So whatever your Drupal skill set is, please reach out. Let me know. We'd love to work with you. So what I plan to cover today is I'm going to give an overview of Workspaces, what it is, who it's useful for, talk about the key features that comes with the module, and some useful additions that come from some contribs in the community space. I'll give some examples of when this will be useful for your team or your website or any of your clients. And like I mentioned, I'll be spending the majority of the time today with a demo walkthrough. For the demo, I've made that available as a project publicly on GitHub. I've even attached the starting database. So after this, or if you're watching this recording later on, you can grab this project and set it up locally, or use it to compare to your project if you're trying to set up the modules and you're seeing something that's a little different than my screen. And I'll add that at 3 o'clock today, there's a Workspaces BOF, so if you're interested in working in this space, or if you have been working in this space, come join us at Harris LL3. It's at 4:30. So if you find this interesting, let's talk more about it there. Okay, Workspaces. Workspaces is a Drupal core module, a module that comes with core. It was experimental since Drupal 8.8. And it became stable last spring in Drupal 10. It's now available in Drupal 10, Drupal 11, and Drupal CMS. And in a collaborative CMS environment, staging and previewing content before publishing is crucial, as we all know. And that's what this module really helps with. It provides a really nice way to manage content changes and updates, and allows users to preview and review those changes before they go live. And it's able to do that all on your live production website without needing to mess around with different environments. It replaces the need for a separate staging host somewhere or a separate sandbox environment. We found it really useful with some of our projects and our clients, and I really do think that it's going to be a game changer for you and your content team. The big benefit here for content editors is it just provides this stable, safe editing space on your live website. They can make any content changes. They're in that space. They're private. They're not available to the public. And you can also set permissions so that those changes are only available to who you want those changes to make them available to. You can preview everything that you've done before you're publishing. You can share that preview, as I'll show in a little bit. You can share a preview with stakeholders that aren't even logged into Drupal. You can set up collaborative workflows. You could piggyback on the built-in content moderation workflows. And it allows for controlled publishing of all your changes at one time with one click of the button. So no more of this double content entry from a staging environment to a live website. For developers, there's no managing different databases. Like what we used to have to do is sync databases down for clients to their staging environment. We don't have to do that anymore. It doesn't tie up that staging environment. At Forum One, we like to use our staging environment as a place to do regression testing before we're launching a product release. Now we need a stable database to do that, and we would ideally like the database to be close to production. So this allows us to not tie up our staging environment for contents to or for clients to make their content edit changes. Theoretically, it reduces downtime and errors. I mean, we're not moving content around from different environments. So there's some theoretical savings there, and there is Drush support for some of these features that I'll talk about during my demo. So from a developer's point of view, this has made my life easier. I don't have to spend a lot of time copying databases around and supporting clients, or frankly doing content entry myself sometimes just to help them. And I can focus on stuff that's more interesting. I want to really iterate the problem space that Workspaces solves. We have a lot of the clients that we work with will have regular batches of content edits that they want to make on their production website. We have, for example, we have a client that's a big education platform, so they have resources for teachers, and they occasionally will go in and make big batch changes to those. They'll do like a peer review pass, and then once or twice a year they'll go in and they'll create all new pieces of content. And what they would used to have to do is make those changes on a separate pre-production staging environment, and then they would all look at it amongst themselves, edit it, publish it, and when it came time to actually make those changes live on production, they would have to do double content entry. We have tried things in the past programmatically. We've tried the site content sync module, which is great. It's certainly better than nothing, but it isn't perfect. It doesn't support a lot of different entity types. And it is just inefficient to have a totally separate staging environment for minor, moderate amounts of content changes. And ultimately what we found we have had to do with our clients is they have to do double content entry after they're finished making all their changes on the staging environment. They have to duplicate them on production. A lot of copying and pasting, and those all happen one at a time. So there's no way to batch publish all of those changes from a staging environment to their live environment. We have done things in the past where we've just copied the live database down to a staging environment or a pre-production environment, and then issued like a content freeze. Here's our rule: no editing anything on the live site, because if you do, what we're going to do once the staged environment changes are complete, we're going to sync that database and override the live database with all our content changes. That works great if our client is able to do a content freeze on production, but oftentimes they're not. There's stuff going on their production website. We have some projects that have actual users and user-generated content, so the site is always evolving. So we're not able to just overwrite the production database. One other thing that's been a pain for our clients is just getting them to use a non-production, a different staging environment. The URL is different. Sometimes SSO just doesn't work on that non-production environment if their website uses SSO for them to log in. And they always get tripped up with that non-production user password web authentication. You'll give them, you might even create them a database, create them a Drupal account on the staging environment just so they can log in and see. And 9 times out of 10, they'll just get confused with the web username and password is different, and that ends up being a lot of support requests. This is all no longer an issue if we use the Workspaces modules. What Workspaces gives us is all of this sandbox area on the production website. So up until now, I've been using the word stage a lot: staging environment, stage, pre-production. That's a phrase that I think a lot of people use. Aqua uses it to describe one of their non-production environments. Pantheon has their test environment on their multi-dev space. From now on, for the rest of this talk, stage will mean something within a workspace on the production website, because as you'll see in a second, the Workspaces module creates a stage environment for you. What the module provides is the ability to make all those changes on your live website within that space, or within multiple different spaces, because you can create several different workspaces, as many as your organization needs, depending on your content initiatives, depending on your team structure, depending on who's editing what. Really depends on your organization. We can configure all of those because it supports Drupal's role-based permissions, so depending on whatever roles the site has, we'll configure just the standard who can edit the workspace, who can publish the workspace, who can create, who can move stuff around. It supports all of that. Within each workspace, if we want, we can even leverage Drupal's core content moderation workflows. So if your team already does any type of draft, publishing, review state, and review, like contributor creates content, editor reviews it, that can all be done within each workspace. So we're able to support that workflow in that workspace sandbox space. It includes multilingual support out of the box. This is crucial for many of our clients. And best of all, there is growing support in the Drupal community. I'm going to showcase here in a second a few contrib modules that are must-haves, in my opinion, when using Workspaces. And there's several of us that are using this on our projects. We're kind of finding the shortcomings week by week, and people are working on patches, working on workarounds. So there is growing support within this space for this feature. So I mentioned some of these contribs. In my opinion, these are the ones, at the very least, the Workspace Extras contrib module is what you'll want to add when using Workspaces. I'll demo this in a second because it adds a lot of nice functionality to core Workspaces that just makes the experience a lot better. The Workspaces Extra module contains several sub-modules: config, deploy, group access, layout builder. I'm going to demo some of these. Some I won't demo because they're not necessarily useful for this audience. But in short, the Workspace config submodule is supposed to support actually making Drupal site config changes in Workspaces. Currently, not all are supported, so there's a mixed. I personally have had just mixed results. I haven't found it useful so far, especially the way that we do version control managed config, but it's hopefully going to be very useful for simpler sites in order to just prototype changes to config. The Workspaces deploy submodule is handy. It just gives Drush support. So if you're a developer and you want to publish Workspaces, you can do that all through Drush. Group access, this is not for the group module. This is allows you to set restrictions to certain groups of users. There's support for layout builder. Workspaces menu is one that I think most people are going to want to enable because that is often something the clients will want to change when prototyping content changes. Moving pages around in menus, rearranging a sitemap, relabeling things, you name it. And that support you'll get from this Workspaces menu submodule. Workspaces preview is another module or another submodule, I should say, that I found very useful. I'll demonstrate this when I get to my demo. It allows you to create a one-time use session preview link and share it with anybody that's not logged in to Drupal. So this is really handy for stakeholders that are just not as technical. They either don't have a Drupal account, or the thought of having to provide support for them is sometimes challenging. Sending this one-time use preview link to them will allow them to log into a session on the Drupal site and experience the changes within that workspace. And you can set a timeout, so it'll expire after so many minutes or so many hours. Fantastic, very useful. Workspace schedule just allows you to schedule when the workspace is published. And finally, this is a work in progress. There's a patch from the Contrim team that adds support for the diff module to Workspaces. It's a little buggy, but I'm going to showcase how this works in my demo in a bit. Finally, there's two other contrib modules, parallel Workspaces, that may be useful for your organization. It has a very specific content workflow, content conflict, editing conflict use case that it solves, and then Workspaces approval just adds a layer of moderation to the workspace approval process. Let me jump in. How am I doing on time? Who is going to find the Workspaces feature useful? Let's talk about who would want to use this and maybe when it's not totally appropriate to use. If just think about every time that your clients or you and your project, you and your website needs to make a batch of content changes. How have you done that in the past? One of our clients is a healthcare organization, and once a year they have this big annual meeting for their organization. So they spend all summer creating, and they do this on a non-production stage. In the past, they've done this on a non-production staging environment. They spend all summer crafting a few new event pages. They update their homepage. They update several landing pages. And then they push it through their internal bureaucracy for signing off and approval, and you name it. And then, at the 11th hour, right before the event occurs, somebody or several people on their team need to do double content entry from the non-production staging environment onto their live website. And it is stressful for them and their content team every year. So we're really excited that this year, this is going to be a lot easier for them. That's one example. Another example, I mentioned an education client that we work for. They always have resources for the website is meant to host education content for teachers, and they're constantly making updates, adding new sections, getting sign up. And all of that is supported by multilingual. So each of those resources, this ends up being 150 new node pages they need to create, upload content to, and translate. And again, they have to do this in the past. They've had to do this on a non-production site. And then we've tried things in the past where we've synchronized databases for them, because rebuilding 150 pages, copying and pasting, it's an effort. It would take 3 of them at least a week to do this in the past. And so we're excited that this year we're really optimistic that this will cut down time for them when we roll this out. Another client of ours is a more simple, they have press releases, news, blog posts, things like that. They have found this very helpful just with prototyping content changes. You know, somebody in a different part of their organization has a request. They just make the change, create a sandbox, give them the preview link. It works out great. I have a note in here for item 4, multi-step content approval workflow. This is something that I've been toying with. I'll be curious if anybody in the room has tried this. And this is something I might try to demonstrate if I have time at the end. Using Workspaces as essentially a sandbox for different people to approve content through different workspaces. We'll see. That's a little bit of an edge case for this. So I've talked about who should use this, what types of groups would find this useful. You know, if you have a very simple workflow, you have a very simple site, and frankly, you're just used to making edits on the live environment and they're relatively safe, probably don't need Workspaces. But it's here if you need it, and it doesn't take much effort to install even the core module, as I'll show here in a second. There are some known limitations of this. This feature set is still evolving week by week. The core module, as I mentioned, has been stable for a year now, but a lot of these contrib modules are undergoing rapid deployment even this week here at DrupalCon. So some of them have an evolution. There's bugs that we're discovering, patches that were being rewritten. Some known issues are there are some limitations to this just at a design level that I'll highlight here on my demonstration about different conflicts when different groups are editing the same piece of content. There is a known error when you're trying to publish thousands of changes at once. And there is a limit currently to which entity types are supported. Kind of all the common, most useful entity types are supported. Node, taxonomy, paragraph, blocks, menu, those are supported. But, you know, if your site has, you name it, some additional contrib module, there's no guarantee that it's supported yet, so work is in progress on that. So I would say that if you use any of these tools and you come across any limitations, don't The Workspaces Slack channel is relatively active. Post about it there, see if anybody can help you, or the Drupal issue queue for both that module. There are some other known limitations, related to like when entities are created after you publish, things like that. But everybody's use case is a little different, so I'll just say, try everything out, see what works for your organization, see what works on your site, and see what doesn't. All right, let's get into a demo. I'm going to change my mirroring here, my screen share and everything. As I mentioned earlier, this will be the link to the GitHub project for this. I have everything ready if you want to pull it down and test it out later tonight, or if you're watching this recording at home, please feel free to do so. Now I'm going to switch, change screen share, and let's see, change my entire screen. How are we doing? Fantastic. Nothing like a live demo. Let me set the stage for what I have here that I'm going to showcase for you folks. This is a fresh install of a Drupal 11 site that uses the Umami demo profile. So for those that aren't familiar, in Drupal, if you want to just prototype something with Drupal, you can install a fresh site and enable this Umami profile, and it populates this mimic recipe website. There's users, roles, content, a couple different content types, things like that. And this is what I'm going to show today. That's all I've done here other than install this, and I've already enabled a couple of modules. The modules that I've enabled for this, I'm going to shorten this list. If I go to the extend page, I've already enabled the core workspaces and the core workspace UIs modules. And I've gone ahead and enabled the workspace extras module and the submodules that come with it, the workspaces menu, preview scheduler, and this prototype workspaces diff module that comes from a patch that's still in progress. I did enable the workspaces config module, but I'm not going to demonstrate that. Okay, when you enable the workspace module, you'll notice here at the top, there's a new button, Stage Live. Let me switch to this view. You'll see this button at the top. This is your shortcut for jumping between workspaces. By default, you're in the live environment, and when you install the Workspaces module, it creates a single workspace for you called Stage. Now, to manage your workspaces, the shortcut is this toolbar here at the top that shifts down, but I'm going to recommend that you go into the View All Workspaces option and click on Settings to access the settings for workspaces. And I'm going to recommend that you toggle and enable the simplified workspace switcher in the toolbar. This comes from the Workspace Extras module, and it just improves the experience, and I think this is much nicer, and it's a little bit faster. So I like this. I would recommend you try it out. There are some other settings for workspaces. The only other one that I've enabled or disabled is I've checked the box to disable hierarchies of workspaces. This is just something that Workspaces supports. You can set a hierarchy of workspaces. It's truly ornamental. It's just what they show up in the interface, and it's kind of a clunky interface. So this is I just disable it. We haven't found this useful for our clients, so this hides this from the interface. Okay, from the top, let's jump around and look at our workspaces, what we have. If I can click and view all workspaces, this is my single stage workspace. Again, this was created from enabling the Workspaces module, and I'm acting currently in the live workspace. So at this toolbar at the top, the active space is what I'm working in now. So live, this is as if I was normally logged into Drupal in the administrative backend, toggling around the site and making any edits. But if I switch to the stage workspace, and I can do that several different ways, I could choose stage from the drop-down, or I could click stage from the workspace, and then I could switch to this workspace. Now the toolbar has changed to the stage workspace, and it's a different color. This is kind of handy just so I know visually where I am. This has changed the session of my authoring experience. So now everything that I do in the administrative backend as this user that I'm logged in as will be done in the staging workspace. And this is really important to think about. This is not changing the state of my Drupal site here. The state of this site has not changed. Other users that view the site, they view the normal public site as anybody would experience. And it also doesn't change the workspace for other users that are logged in. So in the separate browser session here, I have a user that is a different user. I logged in as one of my example users, Margaret Hopper. Margaret is just an editor user. She has the editor role, but she sees the live workspace. Anything that she does is outside of any changes that I make. She could jump into the stage workspace if she has permissions, which she does. She could join me in reviewing and doing anything. But I do want to make a point that whatever workspace is active is only active for your session. All right, let's edit some content. Let's see what it looks like to edit content in a staging workspace. So this, as I mentioned, I've switched over to the stage workspace. This is a work in progress workspace. Anything that's done, any content edits that are made in this workspace will remain in this workspace. They will not affect the live content. I'm going to pick on the About Umami page. This is just the About page. It's a simple, basic page. And I think I'd like to zhuzh it up a little bit, and I'm going to go in and edit this page. This is a very simple, basic page content type. There's really just a title, body, URL, alias, very minimum. But this will highlight the changes that we're going to make. So somewhere I have a tab that has, oh, I know where it is. I want to copy and paste some content. So I'm just going to edit this About page, and I'm going to insert some changes. All I'm doing is pasting in some content, and I'm going to save this change. So I'm logged in, so of course I see my changes. This is what they look like. They look good. Same regular Drupal content editing workflow. If I switch to a user that's not logged in, or I guess not a user, just an anonymous user, I'm going to switch over to a browser here that's not logged in, doesn't have access to anything. And if they visit that same page, they still see the live production version of the page. Great, very simple. I can make any changes that I want in this workspace as this user, and then I could review it with my colleagues, share the link around, get any sign off. So let's go ahead. To me, this looks fine. I feel safe. I want to publish this. I'm going to go ahead and publish these changes. I'm going to do this by going to Manage Workspace. In this workspace, this would show me all of the changes that I make. So far, I've only made one change. I'm curious to see what this looks like. I have some options. I could view the changes, and then I have my built-in node editing options. I can edit or delete, or I translate it. I could discard and undo and revert the changes, and I could move this change to another workspace. Talk a little bit about when you might want to do this here in the next step. I'm curious. Let me see what the changes are. So I have an option at the top to show the diff, and I could either show the diff here. This uses the diff module. This comes from a prototype Workspace Extras patch. It gives you the Workspaces diff module, submodule. This is really handy. I will say there are currently some limitations with this. Certain types of edits are not supported quite yet, but overall, this is fantastic. Think about all the times that you've wanted to use diff, or if you have used diff, you know how useful it is. So this within a workspace is great. I also have a log. I can see timestamps. To me, this looks great. I'm going to go ahead and publish this change. I have some options. I can just go ahead and publish it, no problem. I could also clone the workspace, and what that will do is just basically keep the workspace open. Workspaces at core is kind of designed around the idea that you create a workspace, it's fungible, you make all your changes. When you publish it, you don't need the workspace anymore, and it gets removed. But we have the option to leave it, so I'm going to click the option to clone it, and that will publish my change. Great. So I'm still in the stage workspace because I selected that clone option, but let's see what that looks like to a public user now. So if I switch back, I'm in a different browser, a different session, I'm not logged in, I'm as if anybody that comes to the website anonymously, they see the change. Great. This is as if I'd taken a page, made a change and saved it. Under the hood, and don't quote me, I'm not an expert, but this piggybacks on Drupal's revision system. So if you're familiar with Drupal revisions, how you can jump around revisions, that's another way to think about how this works under the hood. All right, let's make a few more changes. Let's make something a little bit more sophisticated. I have a lot of content on this Umami demo page. I could do several different things, but let's say I want to create an actual workspace for some of my content changes. Let me not publish, I'm going to skip. I'm going to add a new workspace. Let's call it my landing page changes. Again, the workspaces are fungible, so we can create one for whatever we need. Let's go ahead and make some more changes. I'm going to pick on this About Umami page one more time, and then we'll move forward to some other stuff. If I add more content here, same thing. But I could also change the URL alias. I could add it to the menu system. The support for this adding to the menu system is something that comes from the Workspace Extras submodule. Very handy. Save this. Great. Let's say now that I want to share some of these changes with somebody that's not in my organization, someone that's not a developer, somebody, a stakeholder, a client, somebody's boss, you name it. People that are always kind of a challenge to support. You send them a link with credentials to log into the stage site, and they can't log in. They're using their Drupal account to log into the web server, you name it. There's a feature that comes from that Workspace Preview submodule, and that enables an option to create a one-time use preview link. I can configure how long that preview link will last for once they access that session. The default is 8 hours, and I can click to generate a preview link. This is a one-time use link, and I have a shortcut to copy it. So now if I share this URL with anybody that's a stakeholder and needs to review this, I'm going to create a new private Firefox session. I'm going to paste in that one-time use preview link. Now this person, they're not logged into Drupal. They don't have to go to a non-production staging environment. They don't have to fumble with their SSO. They don't have to do anything. They just go to that link, and they can navigate inside of this workspace to see the changes that I prototyped for them. So first one, I just went ahead and added the About page to the menu, added some other changes here. They can look over, they can respond to the email that I sent them and say, looks good, thanks, publish. Easy peasy. This has been such a minor feature that has just been so helpful for our clients. There's few stakeholders that, this is so painless. We just email them the link or Slack them the link, click it, we tell them what to change, they provide feedback. We can even do a pair content editing session, converse about it in Slack, no problem. No more login headaches. And for security issues, that page will expire whenever the time is set. So that's the preview. Let me jump back and showcase a few other features. I have it in my slide notes. Okay. In this workspace, I have a few other options. If I wanted to, I could configure, again, thanks to one of these useful modules that come with the Workspace Extras contrib, I could automatically configure when this gets published. So if these changes need to go live, Monday morning at 7 a.m., and I got to drop my daughter off at daycare, configure this, cron runs around that time, everything is published, happens automatically for me. I will say we don't use this for more complicated content changes. We want to be there to make sure that everything goes live. We can press the button and ensure everything's fine. But for smaller changes, releasing a page, something that's a little more sophisticated than using the scheduler module just for publishing a page node, this has been handy. Okay, one limitation that I want to talk about with this module, I'll spend a minute to just demonstrate this because this comes up from time to time. is what happens when you have content locked up within a workspace and an urgent need comes in to change that piece of content immediately live on production. So let's jump out of here. Let me undo a few of my changes. I'm going to go back to my workspace. I'm going to manage this workspace. I'm going to go ahead and I could either redo this or why don't I undo and strip this out? So let me publish this. And let me delete this. If I delete it, it will just revert everything. Great. I'll switch to my staging environment just to make a demonstration quickly about what happens if I try to edit this page and then someone else needs to edit this page, which is very common. If I'm editing this page, I'm going to go ahead and add some more content. I'm just going to make a very minor change. I'm going to click Save. Oh, excuse me, I have to switch over to the stage environment. One thing that I think, I'm going to actually jump around real quick. One thing I want to make a point to mention that when you're in this staging environment, everything that you make a change to stays in the staging environment, except for stuff that can't be saved into the staging environment. So an example of that is pretty much any of these other administrative configuration forms. If you were to go to configuration and just go try to change the basic site name, for example, any of these forms, when you submit them while you're in an active workspace, you'll be shown a message. And under the hood, Workspaces kind of captures, it runs like a form alter. So every form that you submit when you're in a workspace, it captures that. So if you try to submit any piece of content or any form, any setting, anything that's not supported content within the workspace, you'll be shown this message. And most of the time, it's perfectly safe just to click Submit to Live. It's really just being there to help warn you about where you're making content changes and where you're not making content changes. Okay, sorry, that was a little deviation. Let me go back to talk about this challenge we have with conflicts when making content entry. So we're on the staging workspace, and we're going to go ahead and make a change, a very minor change. I'm just continue to just copy and paste content here. So I'm going to save this change, and if I go and look at the workspace, I can see that I have my change here. It's wrapped up here. Now, here's a real common scenario. I'm going to pretend for a second that I am a different person, a different user. I'm switching back to my other browser. I'm now logged in as Margaret Hopper. Margaret is a content editor. We have an urgent need to update the About page. There's some content change that just needs to be made. Somebody needs to add something. Somebody needs to change a link. Somebody needs to remove something. Something urgent. If I try to edit this page outside of the sandbox, it blocks me, right? Because this page, this piece of content, is tied up in an active workspace. This is one of the main either design features or design limitations, kind of depending on how your content workflow and how your organization is structured. There's two ways we can manage this. What we have been doing for the most part is when possible, we just say, look, this is an offline conversation. Somebody's got this tied up. Ask the editor, ask the person that's maintaining the workspace. Usually everybody's aware of the content change that's tied up in the workspace. We just asked, go into the workspace and I'll demonstrate. Go ahead and just release the discard the changes. That unlocks it. Then that page is able to be edited, and then we could pull that page back in. But that's handy only if the changes that you're discarding are minor and you can copy and paste them out, no big deal. If you had a more complicated series of changes that were in the works, if you're in the middle of an initiative, we're like 3 days out from publishing it, we don't want to disrupt them, there is a useful module that I'm going to jump over and showcase called Parallel Workspaces. The Parallel Workspaces module, when enabled, again, submit to live, because I'm in the stage workspace. What this will do is it will unlock this. But this comes with another compromise, which is that any change that I make into this live workspace will now compete with any change that I have in my stage workspace. So again, this is a different type of offline conversation. In this scenario, again, we don't actually use this module in production, but it might be useful for your workflow. You could do things, have a side conversation, copy and paste the minor hotfix change from this About page back to your draft page. That's something that you might find useful if you're in an urgent need. Okay, let me just check my notes. Workspaces scheduler. So this has been the Workspaces module. If your teams, if your sites, if your clients find this useful, we're really excited. I'm really excited to hear any of your feedback. Again, the Workspaces Drupal Slack has a lot of good conversation about limitations, what people are using it for, where we're finding it. The Drupal issue queue is another place. I found this to be a really big game changer for the few clients that I've used this with. I know that some of our content folks at Forum One are very excited about this. So yeah, we're very curious. I'm very curious to hear any feedback from you folks. What I'll do right now, if you have any questions, I'd love to take them, and I'll also update anything that I need to this presentation. Excuse me, for this demo. This demo will be updated and pushed up to GitHub right after this call. So thank you so much. In the back, sir. So the question was, can you stage multiple changes to different pages and then only send one preview link? So one preview link per workspace is how it is. So if you have a need to have different preview links for different stakeholders, just create different workspaces. Could get clunky. You have the ability to move content between workspaces. Again, that could solve your needs. But let me go into the workspace and show it off. So moving content between workspace might be a need. Sorry?
I think his question was like, does all the pages, all the changes work? So it's like a whole virtual site.
Yes, I'm sorry. The question was, do all the changes get included in the preview link? Yes. So the preview link includes access to the workspace. Any changes in that workspace are available for the user as they browse through that session. You, sir. That's correct. So the question was, if you have a workspace that has several different changes, can you cherry pick and publish one of those changes at a time or not? And the answer is no. Everything in the workspace, when you press publish, gets published. So if you had the need, if one of those changes needed to go out sooner than later, move it to a different, create a new workspace and move it around. Shoot.
Right. We've seen everything with respect to a piece of content. What about files? So, for example, I have my stage. I've gone ahead, uploaded something. This should not be this image. If someone has to link to that image, it should not be viewable by anyone not having permission to view the workspace. And a similar way that if it gets deleted or the whole workspace gets deleted, even files just completely get
So what?
from the actual storage files.
So was the question, are media and files supported, or is the question what happens during cleanup if those abandoned files are?
Yeah, both in terms of, if it's not yet published, nobody should view it.
Correct.
Even if they have like the link to it, like that soup, hey, the soup is not yet ready. Nobody should see that.
So I'll admit, I haven't.
I completely deleted.
Correct. So media is supported, content changes are supported within the workspaces, and if you do not publish those changes, so if you created a new media image, uploaded a new image during a workspace, applied it to an article, you name it, but then decide to abandon those changes, revert, and not publish them, once you delete them, they'll be removed as a revision. It's the same as a revision under the hood. When cron cleanup runs, I believe it should be pruned. I'll admit I haven't tested that, but I believe it should be pruned. You, sir. Yes.
How hard is it to train clients on this? This seems very powerful, but complicated. So have you run into any issues with that? Do you provide a lot of videos, a lot of documentation? What's that process look like?
The question was, how challenging has this been to train clients? And the answer is it depends on the client's familiarity with the Drupal administrative interface already. in our experience, we specifically chose clients that were familiar with the Drupal editing experience, or I suppose it was a coincidence that they allowed us to, try this new experimental feature. But they were already, Drupal strong site builders, so they were very familiar with moving around the interface. And as long as buttons didn't move and things didn't change, it hasn't been too much of a problem. The main questions I've received from them are around what's supported when the preview link is shown, similar kind of to your question, and forgive me. Oh, in one case, clients had certain modules that provided custom entities. Those just weren't supported. So their questions were like, this is great, but what is, can I use this pop-up feature that we have? So I would say it depends on your client's need. This simplified UI, in my opinion, helps a lot. So your mileage will vary. I'll be curious to hear if anybody experiences any challenges with their clients, or maybe has anybody experienced any challenge with? Cool. Anybody else?
It has to do with the user interface. Can you change the name of like the stage workplace or workspace versus the other thing? I feel like some people would not understand that terminology, but other clients would.
What I would recommend is labeling workspaces for whatever the initiative is. So for my demo, in hindsight, I probably should have named a few more specific use cases. Stage is what comes out of the box with the module workspace, but you have full flexibility to create any workspace that you want for any initiative and name it whatever you need. So 45 event recap, you name it, and that should help.
So to follow up on that, is there a way to have them sort of programmatically get named? So if you're a particular user with a certain role on the site, and every time you create a space, a workspace, now you have to come up with a unique name. Like I'd love for my users to just have it get labeled automatically, like they don't have, it would just come in.
So the question was, could a user, when they create a workspace, could the label be applied automatically to them? Currently, that's not supported. I could see that being a very useful feature. As a workaround, the username that owns the workspace is listed here in the Workspaces overview page. But something like that would likely have to be custom.
That reminds, that was a very good question. So that gives me one thing. Can more than one people work on the same workspace?
Correct. If they have permissions that allow them to, yes.
How well does layout builder work? I know there's a module, have you had any experience with it? It's kind of work as blocks
I personally don't do a lot of layout builder work, so I didn't get too into it. I did play around with adjusting a few layouts, and simple blocks did work correctly. But I can't say with any confidence how well layout builder is supported. I'm just not an expert in that area. Green shirt back there, sir. Yep.
Yeah. So I see there's like a workspaces menu module. So you can do like page changes and menu changes, like basically rewrite a whole section of the website as a workspace.
That's correct. The Workspaces module is so the question was Workspaces menu module. This module comes with the Workspace Extras module. It's a submodule within that module. So if you're looking to enable this, you have to go get the Workspace Extras module that's located at /WSE. And what that allows you to do is just prototype changes to your menus within a workspace. It adds support for the menu entity types. And yes, you can make any changes that you need to in sitemaps and within it. Black hat, sir.
So if you're already using workflow or content moderation, would you replace that with this, for example? Would you work is this more for like a bigger? It sounds like a bigger set of content changes, or do you work with them together?
So the question is, if you already use content moderation or the workflows module, would you replace those with this? What would you do? And I would say that they could complement each other. So they're useful for different needs. If you want to prototype a batch of changes at once within a workspace, that's the power here. Within the workspace, you can continue to support those content integration workflows. So if you have, somebody as a contributor role and they add content, and then somebody is the editor and reviewer role, moderator role, that can all occur still, but it happens within the workspace. Everything needs to be in the published state in order for you to publish the workspace. So that's another note. So yes, they more complement each other than they replace one another.
Thank you. Well, while editing the content, when you update URL and such, where does that change, and do you need workspace extras for that, or does the base module cover that?
I believe that's supported in the base module. I don't recall exactly. I don't want to speak out of turn on whether that support is included in the core Workspaces module or not. But you can prototype URL changes within the workspace. They work as normal. I will say if you have the redirect module enabled, those redirects do not get created until the workspace is published. Because they're not.
You don't need to manually make those later.
Let me go to the back.
One quick question, one maybe more in-depth question. First, if a user logs out and then logs back in the review session, do they go back to the live session, or do they go back to the workspace?
So I think the question was if this is related to that one-time use preview link. Is that what the question?
Just like an editor.
If a content editor is in the stage space, logs out, and then logs back in, are they in the stage space or the live space?
Live space. If they so the question was if they're in one of these workspaces that they log out when they log back in. I believe they go to the live. Don't quote me, but so you had two-part question. You said.
Yeah, is it possible to use the workspace as a contextual filter in views such that you have
So the question was, can you use the workspace as a contextual filter in views? Let's try it. There is some minor workspace entity support in views. We'll see. Let me know. You, sir.
So how does it handle new content? I guess it just ends up in the workspaces.
Yeah, the question was what happens if new content is created within the workspace. Would it need to go through any moderation or content workflow? So if it was created as a draft, it needs to be published before you can publish the workspace. You, sir, in the black.
I'm wondering, so kind of a two-part question, right? I'm assuming that you're using this with clients in production environments, right? Are there any instances where clients are kind of leery to that, or have you seen any issues with them using this in a production environment?
So the question is, are we using this with clients in production? Have they been reluctant to use it in production? And the answer is no, simply because they are a little bit more sophisticated clients, at least the ones that we work with, the content editors on the teams that we work with. But I would say that we have spent a lot of time building trust with these clients, so that would start there. In general, do be very careful about anything that is a prototype feature with your clients in production for sure. I will not tell you to just go enable this on your client's production website. Please talk to them about it. Demo this to them, see what they think. But so far, we've had good luck with it. All right, I'm going to take a few more questions. We are at time. Please come up and talk to me after this. I'd love to chat more about it. And there is, again, a BOF at the end of this. There was a question over here.
Can permissions be set up to allow users to only edit in a workspace?
Can you configure rules so that users can only edit in a workspace? That is, I don't know. That is a great question. I can see that being very useful. That's a good question. Sorry, I don't have an answer to that. Black shirt.
Are the preview links that you can send out, they're not one-time like a Drush ULI one-time login link?
They will
Until the date the time ends?
correct. So the question was the preview links. I did describe those in a one-time login. I probably shouldn't have called them one time, but they will expire after the time you give. So they are, they will expire. They're short term. Why don't you come up after if you don't mind? I don't want to take over from the next speaker. Let's call it here. Thank you so much for coming.